Hello everyone. Good evening. We'll get started with our day 2 session, and let me log into OIC instance first. So I'll be spending entire session to the whole session will be talking about the options available in the integration designer screen. So the moment you log into OIC instance, click on the menu option. Remember, there are 3 key cloud services in OIC, right? We have integrations, VBCS, and PCS. Even if you work in real time, or even when you start working in real time projects, you would be spending most of your time in this particular page, because all the OIC projects that you do would involve quite a bit of integration work. And yes, some of the integration projects or some of the OIC projects might also involve VBCS and PCS applications as well. So if you click on design, click on integrations, this particular page is called as an integration designer page. Okay, and yes, you can build integrations from this particular page, and within the integrations, you would be using all these options that you see here. Okay, I'll be spending a whole session talking about the options available in this page, because it is quite important that you understand them very well. Now, first things first. So when you start, when you just give me one moment, guys. A couple of folks are calling me. Not sure if they don't know that Zoom link. Just give me one moment. Yeah, Jamal is trying to come in. Okay, so so the moment you click on integrations, first things first, the user with which we have logged in, right? The user with which we have logged in would be applied as a filter here. And you would be able to see the integrations that this particular user has updated last. So I logged in as user 1, and I've updated almost like, so there are close to 212 integrations in this OIC instance that I updated recently. And another important point is, if you see here, so the moment the integrations are loaded here, you don't see the whole set of integrations loaded in one go. Instead, these integrations will be loaded in multiples of 16 from a database. Remember, whatever information you're seeing on screen, guys, it is of course stored in a backend database. And from that DB, whatever are the last, first of all, the integrations which are updated by me would be displayed in the table. And they are also sorted by last updated date. So if there's any integration that or the most recently updated integration, or the integration that I have edited recently last, that would be showing up at the top here. And integrations will be loaded in multiples of 16 into the table. First, you would see first 16 integrations, and as you scroll down, in the OIC would go into the backend DB and fetch the next 16 integrations that I have updated. Okay, and within the table, what do you see, guys? You see a simple picture here which tells you what is a triggering point and what other connections did you use in the integration. So if I want to know what exact connections I used in the integration, I don't even have to open it, guys. And we discussed what is connection, what is an adapter in yesterday's session, right? We know very well what is a connection, how to connect to the systems, and we also know how to use connections in the integration as well. So within the integration, if you want to see what are the connections that you have used, you don't even have to open the integration. If you just put your mouse on top of it, it will tell you the connection. And you see the integration name, version, and what style has been used to create it. I'll be talking about the integration styles in 10 minutes from now. So whenever you try to create a new integration, you need to pick a style for it. I'll be talking about it in a moment. And you see a last updated date and a status. Okay, so this is a crucial information that you get to see on the integrations page. And by default, it would be a table layout that you see. You can change it to card view if you want. But yes, not many clients do prefer card view. Okay, so most of them do use table view. And we have an option to refresh it. And we can, normally when we build complex integrations, guys, we would not be able to complete the build in one single day, especially when you build complex integrations, say like this one. Right? Especially when you build complex integrations like this one, like the journal import service. It would be, you might be building complex integrations like this. You might be building complex integrations like this one, and you would not be able to complete the entire build in one single day. In fact, this is a fourth integration that we're going to build as part of the course. And we would spend almost like 5 to 6 hours to build this integration. So what is it that you would be doing? You would probably be doing building an integration today, and you close for the day. And when you resume tomorrow, what is it that you do, guys? You quickly come in here. See, one way to search for your integration is you can keep scrolling down and search for your integration. But that's a worst possible way. Instead, you do have an option to do a quick search here. And at the moment you put in your any word in there, so you would be able to see the integrations which matches that name pattern. So if I type in UG58, I would be able to see all the integrations that I created for that particular batch showing up here. And yes, this way you can quickly search for your integration by entering its name. And your username is applied as a filter, right? You can take it off as well. And the moment you take it off, you see it has become 213, meaning there's one integration which I didn't update, but somebody else has updated it. And we do have an option to apply a variety of filters here. Say, for example, I don't want to see all the integrations. Maybe I want to see only active integrations which are available here. So I can go in here and say, boss, show me only the active integrations. So these are all self-explanatory, but yes, I want all of you to be very clear about these basics. And any integration that you need to build, first of all, you come into the integration screen, and we have two options here. We have an option to create an integration, and we have an option to import it. So we'll talk about the import first, and then we go into the create part. So when exactly this import would be helpful, guys? So, and before I talk about that, what would be the normal phases that you would have in an implementation project, guys? Any implementation project, what are the normal phases that you would see? Development, followed by SIT, UAT, and production. Yes or no, guys? Everybody with me so far? And would we have different Fusion Cloud instances or ERP instances for each phase, guys? Or do you do everything in one instance? So in case of EBS or a Fusion Cloud implementation projects that you might have probably been working on, do you have different instances for each phase, guys, or do you do everything in one instance?
Different instances.
Different instance.
Obviously, different instances, right? So it's no different for OIC. Even for Oracle Integration Cloud, we would have 4 different instances to do different things in there. So you would use one instance to do the development. You would use another one to do the SIT, a third one for UAT, and a fourth one for a production. Now, if you're probably, the instances would be different, certainly. And let's say one of you are leading an integration project. Let's say Jamal is leading an integration project. And as part of his project, let's say they have created in total 100 integrations. Okay, let's say it's a small scale integration project. And they've created, he and his team has built 100 integrations in a dev OIC instance. And client has called up Jamal and they said, Jamal, we're going to start SIT from tomorrow, 13th of December. Please deploy these 100 integrations to SIT instance. So yes, Jamal and his team has created 100 integrations in dev instance. By tomorrow, these integrations need to be deployed in SIT and they should be up and running. What are two possible approaches you could take to migrate integration size from one instance to another instance? One approach that you could take is, yes, you see the integrations here. Yeah, I can pick up one integration at a time. I can pick up one integration at a time. I can export it. And when I export it, what would happen is there would be an integration archive file created. And one important point here is, so this integration archive file that is created, it contains the complete logic that you have in this service. Okay, so it contains the integration details, of course. And along with the integration logic, whatever connections, lookups, and JavaScript libraries that you referred in the integration, remember within the integration, you would be using connections, right? And within an integration, you might also use lookups and JavaScript libraries as well. At this point, you don't know these two, but I'll explain them as well in the due course. So whatever, so the key takeaways in this integration archive file, not just the integration, all the underlying components used within the integration would also be part of it, be it connections, lookups, and libraries. What it means is, as a developer, I don't have to really worry or care about underlying components. It's not like if I have to deploy this integration to fresh instance, it's not like I need to deploy the connections first, lookups afterwards, libraries, and then deploy the integration. Okay, I just can export it. There would be an IAR file created. And remember, I'm in a dev OIC instance at the moment. I would log into SIT OIC instance. Unfortunately, we've got only one. But you would be logging into SIT OIC instance. And how would you import it in SIT instance? You would export the integration from dev, and you would use import option to import the integration in SIT instance. And when you say import, it would ask you to upload an IAR file. You would pick that one up and you would import it. But I'll tell you one thing is, if I ask Jamal to do this and his team, so if there are, say, probably 5 integrations or 10 integrations, Jamal would say, yes, sir, I'm happy to do it. I would just export 5 files and import them. But tomorrow, Jamal moves on to a different integration project. They have created, say, 500 integrations. Would you be willing to do it 500 times, guys? Export and import one integration at a time. Jamal, yes or no, please? Certainly, there must be a better way, right? And that's exactly where a concept of packages come in. So yes, you can migrate one integration at a time if you want. And we also have an option to deploy the integrations in bulk from one instance to another instance with the help of a package. Now, let me tell you how this works. Remember, guys, in today's session, I'm only going to give you a high-level overview of these options, guys. As we progress in the course, we'll be talking about each one of them in quite detail. Okay, don't think that I'm rushing through all the topics on the second day itself. Okay, my only intention is to give you a very high-level overview.
But how to delete this, Prasad? If I want to delete that any integration,
you just have to.
Option is there.
Yeah. If the integration is an active status, you won't be able to see with the delete option. I think that's probably why you asked that question. But once you deactivate it, you would see an option to delete it. So all the typical things that you would expect in an OIC instance would obviously be there. Now, moving on to the packages. Okay, so if Jamal and his team needs to create 100 integrations, and let's say 70 of them are related to ERP Cloud, 20 related to HCM, and 10 related to Sales Cloud. And whenever you build an integration, whenever you create an integration, yes, of course, there is a style that you have to choose. I'll talk about this in approximately 10 minutes from now, and I'll be explaining each one of them in detail. But irrespective of the style that you pick up, you have an option to include the integration as part of a package. So whenever you create an integration, you can put it into a package. So if you are probably leading an integration team, first thing that you would be doing right at the beginning of the project itself is tell your developers what are the package naming conventions that they need to follow. So you need to send out a clear-cut email to your developers saying that, boss, don't put your integrations into ABC package or your nicknames. Instead, follow a specific naming conventions. And you tell them very clearly that if it's an integration related to ERP cloud, put it in ERP package. Put it in ERP package. And if it's an integration related to HCM cloud, you put it in HCM package. If it's integration related to sales cloud, put it in sales package. So this is what you're going to tell your developers. And yes, when your developers follow your word, and if everybody did follow the instructions, then what is it that you would do by the time the integration build is done? And remember, when you create your first integration and put it into a package, the package gets created automatically. And from second time onwards, when you create an integration, you use the same package, the integration will just get added to that particular package. So it's like a bunch of integrations going and sitting in a packet. And where do you see those packages? You would be able to see those packages here. And the moment you put your first integration into a package gets created automatically. You would be able to see the package name. You would be able to see the integrations on it. And if you say, let's say I search for UG58, I see 2 packages. Assume that this is HCM package and this is ERP package. And how many integrations we have in HCM? We have 5, in ERP we have 26. And if you want to see what those integrations are, click on it. You would be able to see them, active and inactive. And the same story for this one. So if everybody would have followed instructions properly, by the time the development is done, we should be able to see 3 packages here, and we should be able to see 70, 20, and 10 integrations here.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sure.
But
Yes.
obviously, life is not that simple, right? Not everybody follows instructions.
Yes.
And certainly, I guess there is John, who has created an ERP integration. He has put it into HCM. And there's Steve, who has created an integration related to ERP, but he forgot to enter a package name. Can we do something about it? Can we repackage them? We can get into the integration. Yes, when you create an integration, we do have an option to put it into a package, right? We can put an integration into a package when you create it. And we can also repackage it as well. Meaning, if we didn't put it into a right package when you create it, you can get into the integration and you can get into this information, primary information, and I can change the package. I can basically repackage it. Keep it simple. Okay. So yes, you can repackage the integrations if required. And before we deploy the packages to a fresh instance, what is it that we need to do as an integration lead? We need to make sure that we have the right integrations and right packages. If something is missing, add it in. If something additional is there which should not be in this package, throw it out. How do you do it? You just go to that integration which doesn't belong to this package and you change it to a different package. And after that, you just have to export this particular package here. And the moment you export a package, what would happen is all the integrations which are part of that package, 26 integrations code, and not just the integrations code, all the connections, lookups, and libraries used in those 26 integrations would be included as part of that package archive file. And all we have to do is pick this one up, go into a fresh instance. We are in dev at the moment. You would log into SIT and you would use this import option to import that PAR file. And whatever integrations were there in this PAR file would be imported. So it could be 20, it could be 200, it could be 500, or it could be 1000. Doesn't really matter. With just a couple of mouse clicks, you can export a PAR file and import it. And of course, at least couple of you might be thinking about it. Prasad, is it this simple, or do we have to do anything else? Anything else we might have to do, guys? we need to
The connection.
configure the connections. Absolutely. Because remember, when you are in a dev instance, when you are in a dev OIC instance, let's say you run an integration, the ERP cloud connection in dev OIC instance will be pointing to the dev ERP cloud instance, right? So when we do the testing, of course, the journal should be created in dev instance. And when I test AP invoice integration, you want AP invoice to be created in dev ERP cloud instance. After the integration is deployed to SIT OIC instance, when they start testing it, when clients start testing it, when SIT starts, do you want a journal to be created in SIT ERP instance or a dev ERP instance? Of course, SIT, right? So that is where this thing, instead of using import, what we do is we click on import and configure. And when we click on import and configure, I won't do it now. We have a detailed session for this one. And when we hit this button, it's going to show you what all connections are imported, integrations, lookups, and libraries. We go into individual connections and we point them to appropriate environments. Okay, so if there's an ERP connection, and if this is a SIT instance that we are importing it into, we would plug in SIT ERP cloud instance URL in that connection and we test it. Yes, after we export and import the integrations into target instance, we do the configurations as well. And does anyone see a complexity with this case? So you might say, Prasad, you're asking me to edit the connections manually. Won't that be a tedious process? It certainly won't be. It certainly won't be a tedious process. The reason is, it certainly won't be a tedious process. The reason is, sorry, I think it is for refresh. Okay, maybe I've stayed idle for long. So it won't be a tedious process.
Hi, Prasad. Sorry. Creating that package, will it be a separate session or because I haven't seen any button on the packages? How to create a package if you want to do?
Did I say something that when we create a first integration, put it into a package gets used automatically?
Yes, automatically. Provide the name in the
creation of, we can input automatically. So the moment you put in a package name here, if it doesn't exist, it would be created. So the moment you create your first integration, put it into a package, it gets created, and integration is going to sit in that package. And the moment you delete a last integration from a package also gets wiped out. It happens automatically. Okay. Now, with regards to going back to where we were, so configuring the connections, won't that be a tedious process, guys? It won't be a tedious process. The reason is, even though you're building, so let's take the same use case. Let's say you've created 70 integrations related to ERP. Okay. And in these integrations, you would have to use ERP connection. So would you create 70 connections using ERP Cloud Adapter, guys? So you certainly have to create a connection using ERP Cloud Adapter, right? Would you create 70 different connections with this adapter, or would you create just one connection and use it in those 70 integrations?
I believe only one is enough.
Obviously,
based upon the requirement.
Yeah. So usually we create connections, one per system. So you would create one connection with ERP Cloud, one connection with HCM Cloud, one connection with Salesforce. And with regards to the best practices, you should leverage connections, lookups, and libraries to the extent possible in integrations. Only if something doesn't satisfy your requirement, then you would create a new connection. Okay, so that's a story with a migration of integrations. I remember towards the end of the integration strand, we would be doing a detailed session, hands-on session, we will do a detailed hands-on exercise to understand how do you migrate integrations, how does a versioning of integrations work, and we do have an option to clone an integration. I'll talk about where exactly this would come handy. Okay, so we will cover the details in this particular session. Now, if you talk about, so that's with import. And first of all, when you build the integrations and development instance, we need to first create them in dev instance, right? So we need to create these 100 integrations. So you create an integration. The moment you try to create an integration, we see that there is an option. The first thing that we have to do is we need to pick a style for it. And there are 3 options available. So we can build an integration as an app-driven orchestration or using an application style. And what does this mean? This means if you create an integration using application style or app-driven was more appropriate for this one. But yes, if you create an integration using app-driven orchestration style, when you activate that integration, there would be a URL generated. And that URL would be used, that URL would be used to trigger the application. And when would the application run? Sorry, when would the integration run? It would be triggered from another application. So when you create an integration using app-driven style or using application style, what that means is after you build the integration and after you activate it, let's take this one. After you build and after you activate it, you would be able to see, let me just refresh this. After you build an integration using app-driven style, you would be able to see that there would be an endpoint URL generated, and these URLs would be used to trigger this integration from another application. Okay, so if it's app-driven, what it means is another application needs to trigger this integration explicitly. We discussed an integration use cases today, right, guys? What was that integration use case? Salesforce to ERP service. Is this what we have seen yesterday?
Yes, sir, yes.
And
Yes,
this
yes,
integration that we have seen yesterday, the use case that we discussed yesterday, who is going to trigger this integration, guys? Salesforce is going to trigger this.
Salesforce.
Right? Salesforce is going to trigger this. So since another application is going to trigger this integration, in such cases, what is the style that we need to use? We need to build integration using application style so that when I activate this integration, there would be an endpoint URL generated, and that endpoint URL I will share with the other team. So in this case, I will build an integration using application style because Salesforce application is going to drive this orchestration. And I would share this endpoint URL with the Salesforce team. What is Salesforce team going to do? They would go to that outbound message and plug in my integration endpoint URL there. To keep it very simple, if you have to build an integration, and if that integration would be triggered by another application, then you would have to use applications as a style. Meaning, this integration needs to be triggered explicitly, and you can trigger it on demand, meaning whenever you need it, you can trigger it. What would be some of the use cases for this, guys? Say, for example, you have, let's say you're doing an implementation project for a client, and let's say they have an internal application. Let's say they have a Vertex system or in any application. Assume that they have application A, where think of it as a billing system. So let's keep it simple. Let's say they have a billing system. Okay, and in that billing systems, AR invoices get generated. And those AR invoices should be loaded into ERP cloud. So we need to load those AR invoices into cloud. And what client has told us is, please build an integration which is capable of importing AR invoices in cloud, and just share me that endpoint URL. Just share me that URL details, integration URL details. I'm going to see these billing systems. These are modern systems, and they do have a capability to invoke a web service. So what would happen? This billing system or systems, whatever it is, maybe everything gets consolidated into a single system, and from there, they would invoke a web service. And here in this web service is nothing but integration built in OIC. And to this integration, a billing system is going to pass in AR invoices as input. Billing system would trigger the integration automatically. So instead of invoke, you call it as trigger. Trigger is the right word. So billing system is going to trigger the integration built in OIC, and they're going to pass in the payload, meaning the input to this integration would be passed in XML or JSON format. One important point, guys, I might be using some terms. I might have used some terms yesterday. I would be using few today and tomorrow as well. Just bear with me if you are not very clear with those terms. Sorry, only yesterday and today. So if you don't know what is payload, what is XML, what is JSON, what is SOAP service, what is REST API, don't panic, don't worry. Tomorrow and day after tomorrow, we will be focusing on web service basics. Tomorrow and day after tomorrow, we will be focusing on web service basics. So even if you don't know anything about a web service, what is SOAP, what is REST, we will be covering the absolute basics tomorrow and day after. And after day 3 and day 4 sessions, you would be very much comfortable with what is REST, what is SOAP, and all the terms that I'm going to use as part of the sessions. So yes, a billing system is going to trigger your integration explicitly, or whenever there are invoices to import, and they would pass in the payload. And within the integration, what is it that you would do, guys? You would plug in the required logic to load invoices into cloud. And so if you have to build an integration which has to be triggered by another application, it could be Salesforce triggering your application, or it could be approval process built in PCS triggering your integration. You might have created a custom end-to-end flow, end-to-end solution using VBCS, PCS, and ICS. And after a request is approved in PCS, we need to trigger an integration. So yes, in all such cases, you would use application style. Keep it very simple. Any integration created using application style needs to be triggered explicitly. But what could be some of the other use cases that you come across in real-time projects? So you would come across plenty of scenarios wherein you have to trigger your integrations based on a schedule. Yes or no, guys? You might have to build an integration, and that integration has to be triggered based on a schedule. Nobody is going to trigger it, guys. Nobody is going to call it explicitly. It has to get up and running on its own based on a schedule. And when do we normally use schedule orchestrations, guys? When do we normally use schedule style? Typically, when we do the batch or bulk processing within the integration with the help of files, we would be using schedule orchestration. Let me give you a couple of scenarios here. So when exactly do we create schedule orchestration, guys? So one scenario could be, so let's say you're doing an implementation project for a manufacturing client. And let's say that customer has an internal warehouse management system. Okay, let's call it application name. And here we have items, and items get updated all through the day. And what WMS system is going to do is it's going to generate an items file. It's going to generate items, a CSV files, and the system is going to place those files in SFTP server 1. Remember, this is an on-premise FTP server. And to connect to this server, we need to be within the client network. But these item CSV files that are placed here should be used by a third-party application. Okay, let's say the same client, manufacturing client, let's say they are using a third-party shipping apps, like they might be using OTM or any other application. And this shipping application or third-party app needs to have access to that updated item information. So whatever item files are placed in server 1, so those files should be consumed by application B. Okay, or a third-party app. What is it that we have to do? Can we go to client and say, boss, please expose SFTP server 1 or on-premise FTP server to application B, guys? What is client going to ask you? A client would say, is this your first integration project? Because we normally don't expose on-premise FTP servers to the third parties. Instead, we go and ask them, boss, I cannot give you access to this server. Tell me, is there any other file server that you have access to? Tell me, is there any other server that you have access to? Okay. So in such case, what is it that we're going to do? So the application B says, Prasad, I have access to server 2. So what is it that what's the situation that we are in now, guys? Just give me one moment, guys. So what is it that we need to do? We have a situation now wherein a source is writing files to one location, whereas target application expects the files to be in a different location. So what is it that we can do, guys? We can quickly build an integration in OIC. We used to handle such use cases using a product called Mp4 guys earlier. And it used to be a very handy product. We used to just go in there, create a source, create a target, and we used to set up a transfer. But we don't have we can't get a new license of Mp4 product today. And the probable reason could be that whatever you could do in Mp4, you can do it or you can achieve it by using a file transfer service base. You can build a scheduled orchestration. And in that scheduled orchestration, of course, you're going to schedule it to run every 1 hour or every day, depending on the requirement. And in that integration, you would go to server 1, search for the files, see if there are any to transfer first of all. And if there are files, we're going to loop through them, pick up those files from server 1, and we're going to drop it in server 2. And after we build this integration, we're going to schedule the service. And in this particular case, what is the requirement, guys? We don't need to trigger the service every time. So instead, depending on the requirement, every 1 hour or every half an hour, we go into the server, see if there are any files to transfer, list them down, loop through them, pick them up from server 1, drop it in server 2. You would encounter many scenarios in real time like this. Okay, could be ERP, could be HCM, could be other scenarios, but yes, if you have to deal with file transfers, you would, on a scheduled basis, you would build integration this way. But sometimes what could be the requirement is not sometimes, quite a few times. It is not only about transferring a file. It's not only about picking up file from one location and dropping it at another location. But you might have to pick up the file, read the content, and we might have to load it into application as well. So for example, let's say that you're doing an implementation project for a banking client. And they have a core banking system. And in the core banking system, journals get created all through the day. And they would put that journals file in an SFTP server. Let's say they do it at 3 o'clock in the morning. What is it that we would do, guys? We would go ahead and create a scheduled orchestration, schedule the integration to run at 3:30. So at 3:30, the integration is going to run. And it's going to pick up that file from SFTP server. How does it do that? Using FTP connection, it picks up the file. And within the integration, you can plug in all the required logic that you need. You can transform the file content. You can change the file format from one to another. You can enrich the file, or you can do the validations as well if you want. Okay, you can also validate the file content as well. And after you do all these transformations, enrichment, and validations, we would be loading the data into Fusion Cloud application. Okay, so it could be a finance use case, guys, or it could be a HCM use case. So yes, you would have. So when you do a Fusion Cloud implementation, so for example, if you are implementing Fusion Cloud for any particular client, not just one, there would be and one important point, guys. I hope everybody agrees with me that if a client implements Fusion Cloud application, it only means that they are replacing their current ERP system with Fusion Cloud application. So they might be using EBS R12 today. They are going to just replace it with Fusion Cloud application. But please don't think that client is going to throw away all the other IT systems that they have and they're going to do everything in Fusion Cloud. Even after client goes live with Fusion Cloud, client would still have, if it is a banking client, they would still have core banking system where journals get created. They would still have a custom application where invoices get generated. They would still have a third-party app or maybe an external vendor from where they receive some information that has to be loaded into cloud in an automated manner. And how do you do those automated file uploads, guys? That is what we normally do through the scheduled orchestrations. And yes, you agree with the client, talk to them, understand what are the steps involved and all that stuff. You would plug in the required logic in the scheduled orchestration, and you schedule it after agreeing with a client on the time slots. Okay, so if you have to basically trigger your integration, based on a schedule, no need of an explicit trigger, then you're going for this. Well, the third scenario is you have an option to use or build event-driven orchestrations. So what you can do is in OIC, you can define an event first. In OIC, you can define an event here. So for example, you can create an item event, you can create an invoice event, etc. Meaning it's basically a structure that you're defining here. Okay, so you can define an event, and in the event, you're going to mention a sample payload as well, or sample structure for that particular event. And the way it usually works is, let me explain it with a scenario so that you understand it well. So let's say the scenario is this. Client says, Prasad, whenever item is updated in ERP Cloud, okay, whenever somebody logs into Fusion Cloud application and updates an item. So updating an item is just an example that I'm taking. It can be invoice creation. It can be journal posting as well. It can be any use case. If you're not comfortable with SCM or financials, when I explain them, think of your own use cases. Whenever item is updated in cloud, we have to do three things. We need to merge the details to a database table. We need to put a file in SFTP server with those item details. And we need to call a REST API to send those item details to a third-party app. Meaning, whenever item is updated in ERP Cloud, nobody wants to do anything. No external, no manual intervention at all. Absolutely zero. But that item update should reach 3 destinations. How do we do it? The way we do it is, you would first define an event here. Event is nothing but a structure for the details that you want to capture. And what you would be doing is, you would be building integrations like this. You would create, first of all, publisher integration. And remember, you would use application style. You would create a publisher integration. You would use ERP Cloud connection as a trigger. You subscribe to item update event in ERP Cloud. Okay, you create an integration, use ERP connection, you subscribe to that business event, which is item update. So which means, yes, whenever item is updated in ETAQ instance, this integration will be triggered and all the item details will reach OIC, will reach the integration. You will receive them as input. And what is it that you're going to do in the integration? Whatever item details that you are receiving here from ERP Cloud, whenever item is updated in ERP, this integration would be triggered automatically, guys, and you receive item details as input. So you are publishing those item details to the event queue. You're publishing those item details to the event here. Okay, here you're doing the mapping, and whatever item details you receive, you're publishing an event. Now, after you publish an event, if you go into events, the message would be pushed to that event queue. And after you create a publisher, remember guys, you can create subscribers. So you can create an integration. And when you create an integration, if you use this particular style, what does it say, guys? Starts running when an event is published. So which means if you create an integration using event option, that means you're basically creating a subscriber integrations. So with this particular option, I can create 2 integrations. Remember the first integration, publisher integration, I'm going to create it using app-driven. And the remaining 2 integrations or subscriber integrations, I would create it using this option. And what is it that I'm going to subscribe to? I'm going to subscribe to this particular event. Whatever event that I'm publishing here from the publisher, I would subscribe to that event from 2 different integrations. Remember, I just had 2. But if you have 3 destinations, you would create 3 subscribers. And from each subscriber integration, what is it that you're going to do? From one subscriber, you invoke a DB connection, insert a record into a table. From another subscriber integration, you prepare a file and push it to SFTP. So what would happen, guys, if you build all these 3 integrations and activate them, we would be doing it as part of a course anyways. And you go into ERP Cloud, update an item, this would be triggered automatically. And that would push an event, publish an event. And as soon as the publisher publishes an event, all the subscribers of that event would be triggered. You could have 2, you could have 20 integrations, all of them would be triggered. And they would pick up that event from the queue and they would process it. Okay, so this way, if you have a requirement to send the updates done in one application to multiple systems, like a database, SFTP server, third-party app, etc., you can make use of our publisher subscriber integrations. Okay, so that's in short about these 3 integration styles that we have here. Yes, Mati.
Yeah, hi Prasad. Prasad, so basically that event is deals with the queue. Normally, like a subscriber should be there for the event-driven mechanism.
Now, can you repeat the
I
question?
mean, clear?
So we have
Yeah.
subscribers. These
Basically,
are the subscribers for that event. Okay, if you go to an event, if you go to an event, say I pick up this event. So for an event, if I go in here, so that when you click on it, it shows you the structure. And if you click on the integrations, you would be able to see the publishers, you would be able to see the subscribers. So there's one integration which publishes this event, and there are two integrations which are subscribed to this particular event. And the moment this publisher publishes this event, these two subscriber integrations would be triggered automatically. And the same message gets pushed to this queue, to this integration, and to this integration as well. And both those integrations, or both these integrations, one of them would start writing file to FTP, another one would write file to ATP. Oh, sorry, would insert details to ATP. So the question is, what if one integration is down? What would happen? That message would still be pending there. It would be durable until that integration comes up, or when that integration comes up, it is going to pick up that message and send it to SFTP. Okay. So you have an event defined, you have a publisher for it, and you have subscribers created for those publishers.
Okay. So basically, the event deals with only the queue. Like it's like a queue having some temporary storage like things, right?
Yeah. You can think of it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, Prasad, Sachin here.
Please go on.
If you look at the events are specific to OIC only. Like what I see here in events is like.
Yeah, these are basically the custom event that we are defining here. Don't get misleaded by the word event. Don't think that this is a business event that you have in Fusion Cloud. These events have got nothing to do with Fusion Cloud. It's basically a name that you are giving here. So when I create an event, I can give any name I want. Okay, I can give any name I want here. I just have to define a structure. It would basically help you to do a handshake between the integrations as a publisher and subscriber through the event.
Okay. Means like,
don't get misleaded by the word item update here. The moment you see it, you might probably think that yes, this is an item update event that you have in Fusion Cloud that we are seeing here. No, it's not that way. That's just the name that is given here. You can define any event that you want here. It's just that from one integration, you can publish that event, and from another integration, you can subscribe to that event. It's like basically doing a handshake. You pick up something from the left hand and you pass it on using a right hand. That's what that way.
Yeah, that's what, like, it's also having two ends, like from the input and output both. It's a middle where it actually get we can say triggered. We can say.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And apart from these integrations, you also see connections here. Connections, we discussed it yesterday, right? So connections would help you to establish connectivity from OIC instance with other applications. It could be a source application, it can be a target application. So whenever you have to talk to a system, you just have to create a connection, pick up that adapter and create it. And it is those connections that we normally use within the integrations. Events, we just discussed it, right? You can create an event, define an event here, and from one integration, you can publish it, and from other integrations, you can subscribe to one. So it would basically help you to exchange messages. Okay, publisher subscriber kind of integrations. And we do have an option for lookup. A lookup, when exactly this would be helpful, guys? Say, for example, let me give you a couple of scenarios here, or one scenario at least. Say, for example, when you build an integration like a journal import service. Okay, so what's the requirement that we have in this integration? We need to, all we are trying to do here is build an integration which is capable of importing journals. And all we need to do is after the journal batch is imported, based on the journal import status, we also want to send out an email notification to the support team saying that, boss, batch number 5000 imported successfully, or 5003 has ended in warning for so and so reason. Now, when we send out an email notification, what is it that we want to do, guys? Yes, we would use notification. And what are the few things that we normally have in an email, guys? Whenever you send out an email, yeah, you have two CC, BCC from subject and the body. So what I can do is, so in the case of two email address, I can certainly hard code the email IDs here. Say, for example, if Tim is looking after GL today, what I can do is, I can certainly go in, I can certainly go in and I can get into the to list here and I can hard code that. Okay, it's not, yeah, it was, I've copied that expression. So what I can certainly do is, if Tim is looking after GL today, I can certainly copy that email and I can hard code it. But does anybody see a problem with this approach, guys? Like hard coding the email IDs or directory paths or a file name pattern or any common properties? What's the problem with hard coding things, guys?
Like it's not a dynamic nature requirement. Like you need to change in events.
Yeah.
This integration
Change from
change.
one instance to another instance, and there's no guarantee that Tim is only going to look after the GL module forever for a client, right? So people keep changing. So today it could be Tim, tomorrow it could be somebody else, right? So what is a best approach? So instead of hard coding things within the integration, what we usually do is we we create something called as a lookup in OIC, and we store these common properties in that lookup, and we go to that particular common property lookup, search for that property, and get that value from there. So what is it that we would be doing? Create a lookup, store those common properties in there, and we would pick up the details from that particular lookup. So you would create a lookup which could look probably something like this. So you have properties and you store the email addresses. So today, if you would have Tim email ID here, tomorrow, if somebody changes, if Tim is replaced by Steve, since we are using a lookup, if people change, client would be able to help themselves. They don't have to search for Jamal or Prasad or Abhinav to edit the integration and change the hard codings. Instead, what we can do, they can directly come into a lookup, and instead of Tim, they're going to put in a Steve email ID there. From that point onwards, when the integration runs, it would be sending notifications to Steve instead of the old one. So this is just one usage of a lookup, guys, but there are plenty of other usages as well. So whenever you want to store something in a configurable manner, or whenever you want to store the mappings between one value and another value, so in all such cases, lookups would come handy. And we would be using lookups in journal import service, and we will talk more about that when we do it in that session. And with regards to libraries within the integrations, we have 100+ functions given by Oracle within the mapper, guys. When you do those XSL transformations, right, you have hundreds of functions available. If you want, you can also write a JavaScript code and use it within the integration. We do it quite rare. Maybe 1 in 100 integrations, you might write a JavaScript library, maybe because that functionality or that function that you need, the transformation that you want to do, is not available in the integration mapper. In such cases, we can register a JavaScript library here and we can invoke it from the integration. And in one of the integration use case, I'll show you how this works. Packages, we've already seen how it works. It would help you to do the bulk deployment of integrations to a higher instance. Adapters is something that you use within the connections when you create them. Agents, it's connectivity agent. Whenever you have to talk to on-prem applications, like an e-business suite application or a PeopleSoft or any custom Java or .NET application that a client has, in all such scenarios, connectivity agents would come handy. So this is a high-level overview of these integration designer options, guys. Murali, whatever questions you have, we would be discussing them in detail as we proceed in the course. It's not the last day for the session today. So whatever questions you have, we will take them up as we get into those individual scenarios for all the screens as we build those integrations. A couple of important points, guys. I will be enabling a passcode on the meeting right after today's session. And from tomorrow, yes, you would have to join the session using the same meeting link, but it's just that when you try to join, it will prompt you to enter a passcode. So most of you have already enrolled in a course, and we've already sent out onboarding emails. Passcode would be enabled tomorrow or tonight, and whenever it is enabled, we would send out a passcode in an email to all of you. Please look at that password when you join the session tomorrow. Use that tomorrow. Okay. And if you have not enrolled in a course yet, and if you're interested, do send me a WhatsApp message on this number. I'll let you know the enrollment process. Please try to finish it before 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. Please don't ping me at the last minute by saying that, Prasad, please share a password. I'll pay the fees tomorrow. Sorry, I'm not going to share it. Okay. Just a request. We still have 24 hours. And I've said it yesterday as well. So if you are interested to attend the sessions live from tomorrow, do complete the enrollment process. Don't ping me at the last minute for a passcode. Thank you very much, guys. See you tomorrow, same time. And we would be starting off with web service basics from tomorrow. Thank you.
Prasad, one question.
Yes.
This schedule is Monday to Saturday, right?
Monday to Friday. Mornings would be, morning batches would be Monday to Saturday. Evening would be Monday to Friday. So this batch would be Monday to Friday. I think
morning batches is also available. I am not sure.
Not at the moment. Not at the moment. Okay. So this batch is from Monday to Friday. I think I complicated it a bit further. Okay, so we can discuss it offline. Call me on WhatsApp.
Yeah. Sure.
Thank you.